You know what? Before anything, let me read you the intro I
Okay.
wrote. It's and you let me know if it's sufficient. Uh, Dr. Megan Sprinkle is a leading expert in veterinary nutrition and a scientific communications veterinarian at Royal. Are you still scientific communications vet at Royal Canin?
No, I'm a scientific communications manager for Whitebridge Pet Brands.
Okay, manager for Whitebridge Pet Brands.
Hmm.
Whitebridge Pet Brands with a background that includes small animal clinic. Yeah, let me know that all of this is correct. A small animal clinical nutrition residency at the University of Missouri.
Yep.
Is that true? She's dedicated to advancing pet health through nutrition. Dr. Sprinkle's diverse experience spans working with species from uh, dolphins to elephants.
Yep.
That is so cool. And is showcasing her adaptability and expertise. And she also hosts Vet Life Reimagined podcast, inspiring veterinary. Okay, at home, she enjoys. And do you have any pets?
I do. I actually have an intro slide so that I can show it to you real quick. So also like if you want to like do high level and want me to go in deeper, I can do that too. So
Yeah, you know
whatever
what?
you'd
Yeah,
like to do.
I'll keep it short and sweet. No one can introduce themselves better than themselves. Okay. I'm gonna start letting people in just so
Okay.
we have a few people in here, and we'll get acquainted with everyone and kind of get an idea for the agenda and such. Um, but I'm seeing a lot of new faces here. Hi everyone. How's everyone doing today? Um, Kind of be letting everyone trickle in for the next few minutes as we get started here. But it's nice to see some new faces. Do we want to go around and briefly introduce ourselves as we're starting? I'm seeing Dr. Siegel is here, who is I'd venture to say a favorite between Dr. Sprinkle and I, who have both hosted her on our shows. So Dr. Siegel, if you want to say a few quick words to introduce yourself, uh, I don't want to put you on the spot, but I don't know. Or anyone, that goes for anyone. If anyone wants to introduce themselves in the room right now so we can kind of get to know each other, feel free. Julie, Katie, uh, I think you both are new faces. Kareem, Taha, it's nice to see you here. Andrew, SW, what does that stand for? F- Hi, Julie. I see you've unmuted.
Hi,
Hey, nice to meet you.
nice to meet you. I'm looking for the camera. I'm in the car, so I'm a sales rep. So my office is in the car. That's why my camera is off. Uh, it's just a bit awkward. I'm a veterinary technician.
Very nice. Okay, nice to meet you. And we have a ton of people here. I mean, you guys, I just hope throughout this conversation we can just all chime in as we kind of think on the presentation at hand. And if you have any questions towards the end, we can have an open discussion then as well. It's nice to meet you all, everyone who is new here. My name's Daniel Valdez. I'm a project manager at Celeritas Digital, but I wear many hats, and one of them is being the host of this with Marlene Siegel. There you are. Hi, Marlene. How are you?
I am great. I am so sorry I'm not muted. I'm at work, but great to see everybody.
It's so nice to see you.
Thank you guys. Love what you're doing.
Thank you. And Marlene was a wonderful former guest of ours on here. We hold these events every month. We call them peer discussions. They're webinars where we're kind of holding an open forum on the veterinary industry and how it intersects with technology. And someone I've been a fan of for a while now has agreed to take part and facilitate this exciting conversation. Dr. Megan Sprinkle, who is the host of Vet Life Reimagined, a great podcast that highlights some of the top players in the veterinary industry, including Dr. Siegel, and some other favorites of mine like Crystal Stokes. I know she recently had Brian from Not One More Vet on, and constantly churning out amazing content. I'm going to let her kind of introduce herself in a more detailed manner. I think she'll be best at that. But today we're going to be talking about technology in pet nutrition. So Dr. Sprinkle prepared a presentation for today to kind of lead the discussion. And I think after this, we're going to be sending out some highlights from the conversation to everyone. We're going to have a little flyer of some of the notes from this, along with a restream of this. The link will be from YouTube. And with that being said, I think we should get started. And without further ado, I'd love to introduce Dr. Megan Sprinkle.
Thank you, Daniel, so much for this invitation. I am a nerd on both sides of this, both on pet nutrition as well as technology. So I was very excited to be able to put this together for everyone. And I have tons of content in here, but this is your presentation. So if at any point someone does have a big burning question in the middle, I'm happy to address that. And I'm also happy to present these slides as well. So don't worry about trying to keep up with me talking a mile a minute with anything on the slides. Happy to share that afterwards. But yeah, I'm happy to introduce myself a little bit. Because it's much more fun to put pictures of your pet than yourself on things like this. I am a pet parent. Eva is a Great Dane. So absolutely adore my Great Dane. And I also have the privilege to feed these two beautiful cats that are outside. I cannot say I'm a pet owner of these cats because they're cats, but no, they're lovely. There's a mommy and a baby cat that we have kind of mutually adopted each other. And so yes, I'm a board certified veterinary nutritionist. And right after my clinical residency, which was at the University of Missouri, I went straight into industry. So a little bit of a non-traditional career path for a nutritionist. But I was really excited by a lot of different resources and be able to have impact in a really big way when it comes to making a difference in pet nutrition. And so my first job after my residency was with Royal Canin. I was a scientific communications veterinarian, got to do a lot of different things, including still stay very much in touch with the clinical side of things because I worked with veterinarians in clinics all the time. Then after 5 years, I went and joined the largest third-party pet nutrition company called BSM Partners and I wanted to learn a lot really fast, and I got what I asked for. So a whole nother aspect of pet nutrition that I got to really learn there. And then just as of this year in April, I joined Whitebridge Pet to lead their scientific communications. So definitely have a very diverse background when it comes to pet nutrition. I've also, because I am really big into innovation, entrepreneurship, technology, have worked with lots of different startups and companies that kind of have put all of this together. So I like to think I have a nice varied background to talk about some of the possibilities in this area. Also for fun, I'm the president of AAVN, so that's the American Academy of Veterinary Nutrition. So that's definitely where a lot of the clinical side of nutrition kind of comes together, as well as the research side. And like Daniel said, I am a podcaster, a little bit of a nerd when it comes to podcasting too. My podcast is called Vet Life Reimagined. And that was really started to show the possibilities when it came to the veterinary industry, especially careers. But as you see all these diverse careers, it really shows you in depth how many places veterinary medicine and pet health can really go. And I think that's really relevant for this talk because my value words that kind of come up with what I do, especially when it comes to the podcast, is around curiosity and possibilities. And I think this is a mindset that fuels innovation and technology. So I'm really excited, like I said, to be able to combine all of this with what I've really focused my career on, and that's pet nutrition. So because I'm a nerd, I fully confess it, I study innovation and entrepreneurship, whether it's listening to tons of podcasts, reading books around this. And I feel like this quote comes up a lot in all these settings. And I know absolutely nothing about hockey. So that, this line is drawn right here. But they asked Wayne Gretzky how he was so successful on being a hockey player. And he said that he skates to where the puck is going to be, not where the puck is. So I believe this is really relevant because if we want to participate in advancing technology and animal health, it's important to be a person where you can see potential and build a vision. So I'm going to talk a lot about current technology that is in innovation with pet nutrition, but I'm also going to talk a lot about where I see that there's possibilities in bringing in technology more into nutrition. So I'm sure I'm among good company here on this. All right, so before I dive into lots of different examples, I think it's helpful to understand the whys, like what's driving technology into this field of pet nutrition. So some of these are probably not surprising. They're probably the same in other areas of pet health. And one of the big ones that we kind of think about are human trends. So things that are in the human side of things when it comes to food and technology, everything from convenience to focus on health and quality, that comes over into the pet nutrition side of things as well. Another big term that's like a buzzword in pet nutrition is humanization. And to me, it's this evolution of the human-pet relationship. Pets are living inside with us more. Again, I have a 96-pound dog that is super lazy and has her own couch, right? So they're coming into the home with us, and therefore we need to fit that lifestyle with what we choose to purchase for them, as well as fits within our own family philosophy when it comes to nutrition is just one example. And pet parents take these decisions really, really seriously. They often want to be very involved and understand like why they're making these decisions and make sure that they are making the right one for their pet. And so there is still a focus in premiumization of pet food and along with quality. Now, I will say that some of these things may not be completely compatible. So some are going to come up and you're going to have to like compromise one over the other. So just kind of keep that in mind. But as parents, pet parents really want to understand and be a part of making these really good decisions. They also are researching a lot. They want to educate themselves, and we are definitely still in the age of information. It's just not always accurate information, but they're looking. They want to learn. There's also a huge focus on pet wellness and I don't know if preventative care is the right term, but pet parents really want their pets to be healthy and happy. I have a really cool statistic or data point here in just a second to kind of emphasize how important this really is to pet parents. Along with this, we see a lot of rise in focus around like gut health because pet parents link gut health to the whole animal health. So a lot of things like that are driving innovation. Also, around that health focus, pet parents are also interested in individualized nutrition. Hopefully, the veterinary side is also interested in the individualized nutrition as well. You know, my pet is special and deserves something customized to their species, breed, and health needs. I think also as our world is changing and we're getting more technology, advanced in our technology, I think pet owners are also almost expecting us to use more technology. We do everything from our phone. And so a lot of these things are just almost assumed that this is helpful because it improves efficiency and expands access to care. Another really big one that's been around for a little while is this driver behind sustainability and making environmentally friendly choices. So whether it's choosing a sustainable pet food or something around packaging, there's a lot of different things around this topic that can be a big driver of innovation and technology. And like I said, some of these things don't always completely go together. So I talked about premiumization, but on the other side of things is we are living in a pretty crazy economy. I think we've all probably felt it, inflation and other things. And so cost continues to be a factor on purchasing decisions. So that is something that we can think about when we're looking at technology, is how can we make something still really wonderful, but also cost effective at the same time. So there's probably others I would love to hear, especially at the end, if you think of anything else that you see as a really big driver of technology in pet nutrition. And because, like I said, that there's some things that might not completely go together. It's like, how can you have a really premium product at a cheap price? Like, that doesn't always work. So number one thing when you're thinking about where do I start, I think is really understanding your audience and the problem you want to solve, because that way you can figure out what is the priority for that audience and you can focus there. So it helps you kind of get your direction. But at the end of the day, a lot of pet businesses in general are getting involved in the pet industry, yes, but especially pet nutrition. It's kind of crazy. Sometimes I like roll my eyes when I'm like, oh, that company's decided to do a pet diet too now. But there is kind of an interesting reason behind it. And I thought that this fact was kind of an interesting to pull in. And so Mintel is a consumer research company, and they found that 61% of pet owners say their pet's happiness and well-being is more important than their own. Like, to me, that's kind of crazy. But it means that that's pretty exciting, that, you know, the type of possibilities that could happen when pet owners are so passionate about their pets. All right. So as I was preparing for this, I'm like, where do I start in kind of breaking down some of the opportunities? And so my career has kind of allowed me to see a lot of this, but pet nutrition is really a huge ecosystem. There's a lot of different players and things that are going on. And so I think it's helpful to kind of break down some of the economy behind pet nutrition so you can kind of know where there might be some opportunities. So this is my crazy brainchild of how I kind of break it down. I wish I could, be clever enough to make it more of a web, because there's a lot of interconnections and overlap into all of this. But this is kind of how I think about it. So from left to right, you've got diet factors, you have pet factors, you have pet owner factors, which is kind of like what I focused on with the drivers, because at the end of the day, you can have the coolest thing ever, but if you don't get somebody to buy it, you're kind of stuck. So the pet owner factors are still really, really important. And then we also have veterinary factors that are going to be a big part of this as well. So starting with the diet factors and how technology is impacting this particular area, we could even break it down into looking at the raw materials, the manufacturing and the processing, as well as the administration, meaning how do we get that product to the pet? So even within raw materials, it gets pretty, you can really start to break it down. And I do not have time to talk about entirely some of the challenges or barriers to getting technology into pet nutrition. Here's a little taste of some of those potential barriers. We have agriculture, we have supply chain, we have regulatory, which is really crazy. I think it may be crazier than human side. Safety, new ingredients trying to come into the market. So these are all things that kind of come into play when we're just breaking down the diet factors. So bringing in some of those drivers, though, when it comes to this side of things like raw materials, is looking at the sustainability driver. And I think this is really interesting. If you look at the environmental paw print, they cleverly have called this, is that if you just take all of the pets, the cats and dogs in the United States alone and made them their own country, that they would actually rank 5th in global meat consumption. So they have a really big impact when it comes to our supply chain and our environment. And I forgot to add that I do not think that any technology presentation should be without AI generated images. So for your pleasure, I have had some very interesting experience with AI. And so you'll see some fun ones here. Just one more example of their impact is if you look at CO2 production. Let's take a 22-pound dog. If that dog ate a completely wet diet, that's equivalent to over 6,500 kilograms of CO2 a year. That's the same as 13 and a half round trip flights in Europe. So that's one dog in a year. So they have a pretty big impact. So you can see why this could be pretty important in driving things around the nutrition for pets. And looking at agriculture, you really can't fully separate agriculture for human foods from pet foods. They are intertwined in many different ways. And so from an agriculture perspective, I thought this company was really interesting. They're called Kilimo. And they're a company that's leveraging big data, machine learning to verify and improve offset of water usage in agriculture. So they're a software as a service solution. So they actually work with farmers to help improve, but also make it a business case as well for them. So this is kind of interesting. Again, a little bit more on the human side. But as we get even more pet specific, so this organization, Pet Sustainability Coalition, is specifically for the pet side of things. They have different programs around improving environmental impact. Packaging is a really big one, as well as sustainable protein sources. So that's some of the things I'll pull out a little bit more into detail. But I could definitely see where technology and like special tech software could make this even easier. And I think especially when it comes to companies being able to share this information with stakeholders, whether it's internal, but also customers who really prioritize this. You have to be able to kind of show and prove it. Because sustainability is just kind of a buzzword. So you want to be able to have something to stand by it. So like I said, the packaging, it's kind of the low-hanging fruit right now for sustainability offers in pet nutrition. So that's kind of where a lot of the focus is. This is just one company that the Pet Sustainability Coalition has kind of approved as one of the suppliers and manufacturers. And they gave some examples of some of the ways they're doing it, whether it's bio-based packaging. There's also post-consumer recycled packaging. So it takes used materials and makes it into new packaging. This is like a whole thing around the packaging, if you want to dive into how we're using technology to kind of make that part more sustainable. But again, it can't just be sustainable. It also has to live the shelf life, make sure the product's still safe and everything. So packaging, you think it's kind of little, but there's actually kind of a lot to it. Now, I mentioned ingredients as well. So plant-based is definitely an interesting area of how can we make plant-based basically fit the needs of the pets, but also be very tasty. And so this is an interesting brand. I must admit, I really like this. I buy these treats for my dog who has food sensitivities as well. And I've actually met the founder when she was going through the Mars Leap Venture program. And that they have lots of different things. They do a plant a tree for every bag kind of program. But what I think is neat about this is that they've used technology to take plant-based products, so this completely vegan product, and it actually smells like meat. So they've got like bacon and burger and brats and barbecue. I don't know why it's a bee thing, but but you can see also that humanization coming into play on this. And I did say smell because I confess I have not tasted these, so I can't actually say if it tastes like it. My dog seems to like it just fine, but they have done a really good job that when you open that package, it really does smell like these food items. And that's like technology and all sorts of things behind the scenes that's really kind of enhancing our ability to make things taste or smell a certain way. So I think that's kind of a neat thing on the nutrition side. Also, this company is also a plant-based company as well. I do know the founder of this one as well. It's about a 3-year-old company, and her story is really interesting. So the founder, Masa, she's a PhD food scientist that previously worked at Impossible Foods. So she is bringing what she learned at Impossible Foods and making a very meat-like plant-based food for dogs. And so you can see this, she's using lots of different technologies to make the plant-based protein look very meaty. So it's very palatable to pets. But, one of the things she said was also you have to help the pet owner kind of get that mentality of, oh, yeah, no, this does look very meaty. And another reason why I wanted to bring this particular company up is Moss is really passionate around AI. And so that's kind of an example of how we can use AI to accelerate nutrition innovation. So what she's really trying to do is figure out how to use AI to help predict and elevate the quality, the variety, and overall appeal of her products. So I think there's still a lot of work to kind of master this idea, but I'm always very impressed with her and her very forward thinking and bringing technology into kind of forecasting potential hurdles and avoiding some of the issues in pilot testing and things like that. So, I mean, there's some opportunity there as well. Like I said, there can be a lot of different drivers like sustainability that we've talked about. But then there's other areas that say in today's world, that economy piece is kind of creeping in, where a lot of consumers are actually deprioritizing sustainability because they can't afford it. So it is important to understand your target audience, but how do we predict these trends? Well, guess what? AI is all in the trend prediction as well when it comes to pet nutrition. So that stat that I mentioned before, the 61% of pet parents, that Mintel group, they have a special software system that helps them be able to predict and look at trends to help understand the trajectory of where pet nutrition is going. And I think that's helpful too, as we're trying to figure out what to prioritize with our innovation, whether, bringing technology into something and being able to use AI to help us make smart decisions. So not only in smart decisions on how do I get a right palatant, but also in like areas of investing. Because some of these areas of innovation are not fast and they're not cheap. And so being able to know how to best invest, I think is really helpful. And I think technology can help us look at that. So there's this group called Cult Food Science, and this is just one example of their product kind of sticking with the plant-based theme. They have a cultured protein. It's called B-Mune, and it's a nutritional yeast blend. But they have also a leading technology platform focused on lab-grown meat. So now this is actual meat, not plant-based, where they are growing meat in a lab. And they just a couple of weeks ago announced that their subsidiary Further Foods submitted a feeding trial design protocol to the FDA for dogs. So they're hoping to start feeding trials with this chicken grown in a lab protein at the end of this year. So that's how close we are just to getting this into food trials. They're definitely not the only ones doing this. There's another company that's looking at lab-grown meat as well. So lots of people getting into that. Now, I think this is super, super interesting. So no matter what your pet parent values, I think pet parents are really, they really value transparency. Some may be a little bit more aggressive in that value than others, but that's where I think this company is a really interesting example. I don't know how many of you have heard of them. It's called Where Food Comes From. And they're an independent third-party verification company. And they work with, all stakeholders in the process to really be able to track where food comes from. And so I think we're pet parents that are really valuing certain things or wanting to know where their pet's food is coming from, that, having some type of technology where they could like scan a code on a bag and be able to track where that product is coming from, or at least the parts of the product, I think is a really neat opportunity to bring in technology and all these things that we're talking about. Because this company can track all sorts of things, everything from humane treatment of the animals to USDA certification, all sorts of things. So you can really start to, if you're not listening to me going a mile a minute, I want to get through all this content, you stop and think about all the things that we could potentially track, that we could like right there on an app, be able to show the pet parent, like this food came from Texas, like, this beef came from this farm in Texas. So all sorts of things you could do with that. So now getting into, we've talked about raw materials. What about the manufacturing process of it? And so there's a lot of different technology that is trying to figure out how do we get a complete and balanced diet to a pet with all these different values that pet owners are thinking about health and, individual preference for cats and dogs. So we have air dried technology, freeze dried, fresh food, raw food, and even this neat, I didn't realize that this is what it was called until I joined BSM, but it's Tetra Pak. So if you think about like what we used to drink, the little juice boxes when we were in school, it's a little bit like that. So it's another way to be able to present a wet food format that is shelf stable. So a little bit more convenient potentially. And of course, the packaging can be recyclable and things like that. But Tetra Pak is kind of another type of technology innovation when it comes to delivering, complete and balanced nutrition, hopefully safely to a pet. This is really a newer area of types of processing as well. And I just knew I didn't have time to show you the whole video, but happy to link it as well. But Greg Aldridge, who is a nutritionist who was at Kansas for a really long time, and then just recently joined Nulo, that he kind of combined something he'd been working on for a long time, this particular cold press technology, and kind of combined with Nulo is making, right now, I think it's just dog food right now, but it's kind of a neat thing because they really were looking at all the drivers and the problems and trying to figure out how to solve that. So it's an opportunity to, at a little bit better price, bring premium food, dry food, and kind of combine some of the things that people like about like freeze dry, raw, things like that. So cold pressed, again, there's a video on the website where Greg kind of talks about this and shows it. But cold pressed involves you rapidly chill the raw food and it compresses it into this like dense nugget, kibble-like texture. And it's a high meat inclusion type of food. And you don't need as much starch binders like you do in a extruded kibble. And so you can actually add more like apple and pumpkin instead of like more of other types of starches. And there's still a cooking process. They do get it up to 140 degrees, so it's not completely raw. But it's interesting how they are taking all of the different elements of pet food, because again, we're feeding a complete and balanced diet to cats and dogs, very different than people. And so each of those nutrients may be more sensitive to heat and pressure. And so it's kind of a way to overcome some of those barriers, still make it a shelf-stable, dry product that is a little bit maybe more cost-effective than some other alternatives. This one I think is just kind of fun. The neat thing, yes, complete and balance is out there. Treats are also a really big part of the human-animal bond and getting nutrition to pets. And so this is kind of a new thing that came up, that it's a treat. You put a little nugget inside of this treat, you put it in the microwave for 60 seconds, and it expands, like it puffs up. So it's harder to get out of the toy. So it makes them have to kind of work at it a little bit harder, which is great for, mental stimulation and slowing them down. And like I said, it's kind of more of a fun thing. But hey, I mean, we're using technology to do, stuff on the treat side of things as well. Also getting a little bit more techie on the nutrition side. The feeders have been around for a long time, but they're definitely getting more options and even more techie to them. Some of them are great for if you have multi-cat households and you're trying to feed different diets, or you've got, pets that are very prone to weight gain. It's really good to be able to feed more of a precise amount of food and monitor that. So like I said, the feeders have been around for a long time. What I got really interested in, because I get to focus a little bit more on cats these days, is on the wet food side of things. These used to be mainly for dry food, because you can't just keep wet food out for hours at a time. It can go bad. And so now we actually have options for feeding wet food in an automatic feeder. So that's kind of neat addition that we're getting into. You can also watch your pets eat. You can serenade your pets while they eat. All sorts of technology out there. You have an app for pretty much anything. You can, while you're at work, toss a treat to your pet while you're away, and talk to them. You can even control their water bowl. So lots of different technology out there that can start to interact in how we're getting nutrition to our pets. All right. So moving on into the pet factors. This is, I think, a lot of the individualized nutrition is really driving the pet factors. But really, at the end of the day, the same question that pet owners have is, what's the best diet for my pet? That's kind of like that never ending question that we always get. And so there are websites and apps to help pet owners try to find the right food for their pet. I think this one's really neat. It's called Petabolics. It is a third-party company, meaning they don't actually make pet food, right? So they're completely third-party from that perspective. And they'll give a survey to the pet owner. They're just dogs right now. But they'll even ask questions around what budget are you looking for? Because they give you a lot of information to try to find that right option. They have this huge data set of diets that are out there on the market. So here you can see when I was playing with Eva as an example, she's a Great Dane. So of course, one of the options that came up was the Royal Canin Great Dane food. But it really starts to get very detailed into the information that it presents to you. So just based off of a survey, you can get as pretty nerdy looking at what are the ingredients in that diet? What are the calories per cup? What are some of the key nutrients that they're highlighting that would make this, different from the other couple options that they'll show you. And then at the same time, this one only has one place that they could pull to purchase it from. But normally there's multiple, and I think I have another example, but they'll even tell you the cost per day it would take to feed this. So this is really helpful to a pet owner who's trying to figure out what is the best diet for my pet. Yes, but you do have to think about it. It's like, we don't want a pet owner to go broke to just by feeding their pet. And just within a click, they could go straight to the purchase page. So it's kind of a neat system. They have feeding guidelines. Here at the bottom, you can see how it pops up with several options based off of your survey. And again, you can dive in deeper to kind of compare them and see what you're leaning towards for your pet. Now, this one, I wanted to put this in here not to tease Petabolics, because this is the same thing with any type of calorie calculator. Calorie calculators are huge because the next question after what do I feed my dog is like, how much do I feed my dog or cat? And so just to say, Eva does not need 2,000 calories a day, and she has a lovely body condition score, if I do say so myself. So that's just one of the things where I think there's still some opportunities to bring in how can we better understand based on a blanket, equation, which, a lot of people have worked very hard to try to find a very close equation. And it's just, it's only a starting place. What can we do to try to be even more accurate? And so we have more information to give recommendations. And I'll bring up some ideas here in a little bit. But the other thing that pet owners are really interested is really that custom diet for their pet. And fresh is definitely becoming more popular. Just Food for Dogs is a great example where technology can come in. So you can actually connect with a nutrition consultant. So a kind of a tele consultant situation, where if you really do want a custom made diet, you'll have your consult, they'll review medical records, and then they will create that custom diet for your dog and send it to you in different ways depending on what you're looking for. For the people who are into the do-it-yourself fresh, Balance It has actually been around for a long time. It was started in 2003 by a board-certified nutritionist, Sean Delaney, and I just think he has been one of the really cool tech people in the nutrition world because, again, he was doing this in the early 2000s, and this is definitely for a long time. Veterinarians, if they heard a pet owner wanted to make a homemade diet, they were like, go to Balance It because it is a really cool software system where the owner can be as picky as they want for what they want in their pet's food. And it makes sure that is going to end up being a complete and balanced diet for that particular pet. And so you can see here, the pet owner or the veterinarian for that matter, can go in, fill out the information about their pet. They can say, I want goat and lentils for my dog. Where you're finding goat, I don't know, but maybe that's what they want. And so they can put that in there, and then Balance It software, they will make a recipe. They'll tell you how, of course, they'll sell you their vitamin and mineral mix, which it does. You do need a vitamin mineral mix to make it complete and balanced, but they'll tell you how much you'll need. They'll tell you the cost of per day to feed, and let you check out, and there you go. There are other companies that are kind of doing this. I think this one is the most customized and most techie on the back end, but Just Food for Dogs has some options where you can make, they'll give you a recipe, and you can make it from a grocery list that they'll give you as well. Dog Child is a newer one that's coming out as well with some recipes. But again, Balance has definitely been around the longest. This one, again, we're getting more individualized for our pets. This is one that I kind of came across in my research for this presentation. It's called a Loom, and they use machine learning, AI, all to adapt to your, I think they're mainly dogs right now, to your pet's algorithm. And then it builds this unique profile and recommendations for their health and nutrition. So they've got a wearable that's for activity tracking. They have a smart bowl, which is kind of cool. It's all connected in an app and everything. And the smart bowl will actually recommend, oh, it's okay, it's breakfast. I'm pulling all this data that I've gotten from your pet. I recommend feeding this much for breakfast. So it's really getting very specific for your pet. Like I said, it's all attached to this app, so you can kind of see everything and make it your dog have a very personalized dining and activity experience. So I think these are pretty cool. All right, so starting to get to the last point here, and that's the vet factors. And I think this is great because we'll start talking a little bit about diagnostics. Daniel and I were talking a little bit about some of the things that we are using in, like in diabetes for pets right now. So there's a lot of things on that side, but a lot of this is really linking the vet to the pet owner and the pet. So kind of bringing that ecosystem all together through technology. So this is kind of a neat app. It can capture, so you can take a picture of a certain area of your pet. So we'll talk about skin maybe, and the AI will analyze that area of concern. They will come up with an analysis, and then it will also send it to a veterinarian to comment on top of it. So it's not just straight, like it's going through a vet. So that is good. But this is really interesting from a nutrition perspective. So we get called in a lot for potential food allergies. And if we're doing a diet elimination trial, this could be really helpful for monitoring how well the pet is responding to the diet trial. Because then pets, most of the time they react through their skin. So they come in really itchy. So we can kind of see is the skin getting better on this diet. So again, I can show with the different areas you can look and take a picture of, and then it can come up with some results as well. Whistle's been around for a little while. It's a Mars product. It is a wearable activity tracker, but they have worked really hard in validating this, being able to look at like scratching and different things for pets. So again, back to like if we're doing a food elimination trial and we're trying to see, are they actually scratching less on this diet that we've put them on? We can monitor that. They've actually proven that this is actually better than the pet owners in detecting some of these signs. So that's great to be able to communicate with the pet owner and the vet. It does more than scratching. It can monitor licking, eating, drinking, sleeping. It can even do a poop scan. So if you're concerned about your pet's poop, you can take a picture of it. Maybe that will reduce the number of poop pictures veterinarians get directly into their inbox. Not that I have any experience in that, but some different ways of tracking how your pet is doing. DNA testing has gotten kind of popular as well. Lots of different companies have some products around it. I do know the Wisdom Panel recently updated their product both for dogs and cats. It's a cheek swab. Usually they're a cheek swab. And so a couple of weeks later, yes, it does break down the breeds, which is kind of fun and interesting to look at. But they also look at some genetic codes that might indicate some health concerns in the future. And for the most part, I've never really saw where this could be helpful for nutrition, because like usually what they're looking for is not necessarily directly nutrition related. But there is one that I think it was Wisdom Panel. I have to double check now, but they can detect, it's called the POMC gene. And it's a gene that can predispose them, if it's mutated, to overeat or more prone to obesity. So that one could be helpful because now we know, okay, I see that could be a problem. We probably don't want to put you on the most calorically dense diet because you'll probably blow up like a balloon. So something like that might be able to help us with nutrition recommendations. I put this one, this is Individualis from Royal Canin in the vet category, because really this product is meant for pets that have multiple medical conditions that need nutritional strategies, but they're kind of a unique combo that there's not really a commercial option available for them. So it's kind of like that balance, kind of the vet would go in, put in all the health information in there. It would use this neat AI algorithm to kind of figure out, okay, what nutrient manipulation do I need to kind of fit all of these needs? And then it sends it to this kind of kibble system. So they have a like base kibble, and it like calculates exactly how much of this kibble to drop, puts it in this bag that has your pet's name on it, and will ship it straight to the pet owner's door. So it's kind of neat. Again, kind of tailored really for those unique cases. And I think they only will do it for dogs up to a certain body weight, just because this is not the cheapest option, as you can probably understand. But I mean, talk about individualized nutrition, a lot of technology behind it that kind of makes it work is pretty cool. Really love this app. I do know this company. I do know the founder of this company. Pet weight loss has been really an unmoving issue for a very, very long time. And especially when it comes to cats, makes veterinarians really nervous sometimes, because we get these really obese cats that they're very hard to get weight off. Like I'm still convinced that there's some cats out there that seem to be able to live off air. And it can be really dangerous if we do not do weight loss correctly with them. They can get some life-threatening issues. So this app, it uses lots of different technology, everything from wearables to special scales, that allows the vet to so closely monitor the weight of the cat to be successful. And I was thinking about this too, just for the presentation. And while this is really focused on weight loss, which is a really big area of concern, if you think about it, any type of disease where you're worried about their weight, and it could even be that you're worried about them losing weight, this allows you to be really closely tracking that and be able to very quickly alert the pet owner and try to get them in to see, like, do we need to do something? Are we getting off on our treatment or something like that? So very, very cool app. Others that are getting into the weight management area is Mela Pet Care. I've always teased, not only kindly to tease, I really would like somebody to come up with this, but I would love like a wand that you like wave over a pet and it gives you like all these vitals and things, kind of like Star Trek, where you got the little thing. This is the closest I've found so far. And it's like a smart scale. So yes, you can put the pet on it. It will send the weight directly to your app system. But at the same time, it is capturing body condition score, which right now is a very subjective kind of assessment. And so it's really neat that they are trying to make this a little less subjective. And so that's kind of a neat thing about this. I don't fully know how they've validated it, to be completely transparent. But they also have some other tools to go along with it. We don't do a lot of morphometric measurements in clinics, But if it helps make the scale more accurate, I can definitely see how this will be helpful. And it is a cool looking tool to be able to help really assess the pet's body condition. All right, since we're talking about tech, I wanted to do a quick shout out to the Association for Veterinary Informatics, talking about people we've had on our podcast. If you have not had Jonathan Lustgarten, highly recommend him, because this is really cool because they're looking at a lot of big data and things. And I can't think, I don't know of any specific nutrition example, but when you have a lot of data, specifically with them, but if you have a lot of big data, just think about what you can gain from that information. And I do have some examples from other who have used that to come up with something clinical. And so Antec came out with this, and basically it was retrospective data. So they used AI, machine learning. They took records from over 150,000 cats over 20 years. They put it into the AI system, and the AI was able to find certain parameters that we would normally get either on our segment when we were taking history or in blood work, and I think maybe on your analysis as well. And it's able to predict up to 2 years the likelihood of a cat developing kidney disease. And so this is really nutritionally relevant because the cornerstone of managing kidney disease is through diet. So this is really cool that we can learn so far in advance. Now, one challenge, and again, I could do a whole presentation on challenges, is that this is almost too advanced. We don't actually have any data to know what do we do if they're 2 years out of kidney disease. We don't have any research to show if changing the nutrition does anything. So sometimes technology is good, sometimes it's a little ahead of its time, but there are some things that we can take from that information, such as maybe choosing types of medication we might use, being more insistent to the pet owner that they come back for their, biannual blood work, that kind of thing, so that we can really be on top of it. They are not the only people doing things similarly. myRNA is a veterinary diagnostic company. They're in the UK, and they're using science as well as AI to help try to diagnose diseases earlier. And so they do also have a renal one. They also are working on one for heart disease as well. So I pulled this one to kind of show how it works. So they are analyzing the RNA, but then they put it through an AI system for analysis, and then they do a statistical modeling. They're really trying to be able to also differentiate between different types of heart conditions, all without, of course you would want to do other diagnostics. If I have veterinarians in there who are like, wait, you gotta still do that. Yeah, yes, use all your tools. But they are trying to be able to discriminate between not only the different types of heart conditions, but stages, which is not currently possible with like pro-BNP or troponin that we currently have. Microbiome is also huge right now, and we do know that we can do a lot to alter the microbiome through nutrition, sometimes good, sometimes bad. So this has been a really big area in the nutrition game as well. And I know horses may not be considered pets, but I thought this was a really cool study that was published just earlier this month. And they looked at the microbiome and the ability to predict disease risk as well as athletic performance in racehorses. So they looked at 52 thoroughbred foals, got all this data, followed them for the first 3 years of their life, and they were able to, interesting enough, be able to predict the risk of respiratory disease later in life, as well as their like how well they were going to do in the race. So like the average prize money they would earn and like all sorts of stuff. So it's kind of weird that they could tell so much from looking at poop samples, but how cool is that? That we can use like AI and technology to predict some of these things. Sticking with microbiome, it's definitely been big on the human side of things as well. So Dr. Curtis Huttenhauer is a professor at Harvard who's been studying the microbiome in people for a very long time. And actually, he has recently partnered with Hill's Pet Nutrition to be able to look at links to nutrition and the microbiome. So kind of a neat One Health application potentially as well. And so I thought that his quote here was interesting about being able to explain, again, back to his human work, why do different people respond to the same diet differently? And that is really interesting, right? And so our pets are not that different either. You can put the same diet, for simplicity, like on a tiny dog and a giant breed dog, and they're gonna respond a little bit differently, right? And so being able to predict that is really exciting. There's a lot of companies who are looking at it. So I don't want to leave anybody out. There's a lot going on because there's a lot of interest in this area. Now, a little bit of my nerd when I think about this in the science aspect of it. So genetics is great to look at, but just because you have a gene for something doesn't necessarily mean that gene is expressed. It's kind of complicated. There's a whole another level called epigenetics, and that's the environmental factors, including diet and nutrition, that can turn genes on and off. So I think this is an important other level to be able to look at, to be able to interpret like all of those things that we just talked about, the microbiome, the DNA, all of that. So this is a whole nother level that it's starting to be looked at in the human side of things, but definitely a big area potentially for pet health as well. Really quickly, because AI is coming into education as well. I saw this article not too long ago about a professor who is bringing AI to help teach. I think she's a pathologist, but she wrote this long paper about going into the details of how you can use AI in education. And we have to learn a lot in vet school, using vet school as an example. And nutrition is not usually the largest piece that we learn. And so potential opportunities to use AI and technology in nutrition education, even on the veterinary side, I think is really intriguing. So this came from her paper too. So she really goes into detail about a lot of different things. So if you're interested in learning more on the education side of things, I definitely recommend getting her paper. All right, I promise I'm winding down. I told you there's a lot. I mentioned, I think I did have a Star Trek reference earlier. But I did grow up with a father who loves Star Trek, and I don't know how it happened. I married his Trekkie too. So I did grow up with Star Trek, and Captain Picard is my captain. But my favorite piece of technology from Star Trek was the food replicator. Just thought that was the coolest thing ever, to be able to just like say what you want and it just magically appear. And so I thought this was a neat example. I do have a purpose behind it. This is a little bit old, but they had a Star Trek replicator challenge. And so NASA got together with the American Society for Mechanical Engineers Foundation. I had to type that one out. I couldn't remember that one. And they went to kids and said, come up with ideas that would specifically be helpful in space to be able to make nutritious meals. And so it was a 3D printing challenge, actually. So the kids designed these 3D printed designs, and the winning designs get to be sent up into space and things like that. The reason why I thought this was neat, I wanted to pull it in, is because I'm a big believer that getting a very diverse range of perspectives to come together to give these ideas, I think is so, so important. And so I love that people thought about going to kids to get ideas for this. And so again, I think that's important for any type of innovation, is really to be open and bringing people with lots of different perspectives. So speaking of 3D printing, my husband does a lot of 3D printing. And so I've been able to dive in a little bit. And so I know we're short on time, but I think this is a really cool video that I wanted to show as really opening up the possibilities in technology and nutrition. So hopefully this will play. Oops. There we go. So I hope that was kind of intriguing. I'm happy to share more videos similar to that. But just finally, wanted to kind of come together with a few basic points that I think are important when we want to be successful in bringing technology to pet nutrition. That is, one, be open to possibilities. Two, bring in those wide range of perspectives and knowledge together. And then also, I still believe that we will always need a human element as much as I love technology, because sometimes when technology is on its own, it does weird things like these little AI generated images. So I think we need to make sure that we're bringing in that human component as well. So thank you so much. I apologize. I know I went over. I tried to rush really fast, but hopefully you enjoyed that. And I will put up my email if you want slides or have any follow-up questions. So.
And let me put your some of your links in the chat
Okay.
real quick. So we have your LinkedIn and then your podcast website. Thank you so much for that. I like that you just left us off with the sushi singularity. Like that kind of float around in my head for the next like year.
Isn't that cool? I've watched it so many times. I just think it's so neat.
Immediately pulled that up and I will be going down that rabbit hole for I don't know how long. Pulled up a few things. I liked what you shared about renal tech,
Yeah.
man tech. I'm gonna look up more about that. Thank you, Andrew, for the kind comment. And Kareem asked a pretty cool question. Thank you, Julie. Julie said, thank you so much. I've learned a lot. Kareem said, would love to get your thoughts on home feeding specifically. What % of pet parents are feeding homemade? And are there any solutions helping them to create personalized balanced feeding plans aside from supplement companies?
That's a great question. I don't know the actual percent. It has definitely been growing over the over time, because especially with I mentioned Just Food for Dogs, but we also have Farmer's Dog is another big one. You know, even some of our Purina, Royal Canin companies have purchased homemade companies, like Royal Canin purchased Nom Nom a few years ago. And so it's definitely something that I don't see going away anytime soon. Some of the advantages of those companies is that they make it complete and balanced, so it's still fresh. They make it complete and balanced and they ship it to the pet owner. I like that because it's really hard to make homemade food for your dogs. And so it kind of takes some of those risks out and you're still getting the fresh food. When it comes to homemade diets, unfortunately, you can find lots of recipes online. I don't trust them. And so, you know, it does sound like it's biased because these companies are trying to sell you the vitamin and mineral mix. But really, it's almost impossible to make a complete and balanced pet food without some type of supplement. And to do it without it is so many different ingredients. Like it's crazy. So unfortunately, that's kind of where we are right now, or unfortunately, that's kind of where we are right now.
And I was looking up the numbers and it looks like in the US right now, I think it's the numbers about 20% of pet parents feeding their pets homemade food. And then in the UK, it grew from 2020 to 2024. It started off at 18% and grew to 24%. Actually, that's between 2020 to 2022 alone. So just within 2 years, it went from 18% to 24%. So it is growing. You're absolutely right about that. And I think as the demand continues to increase, then we're going to see different ways of doing it. But I know that Kareem, I was looking, I saw that you are the founder of a company called My Fur Tribe. I'm curious about that. It's a nutrition app. That's so cool. Okay. Yeah, I'm like looking into like 50. I have like 50 million different tabs open,
You're going to be busy today.
learning more about everyone and what they do and like learning more about some of the things that you mentioned, Megan. But I really do appreciate you kind of taking the time to go through everything. I think we're getting some invaluable wisdom from you.
Awesome. Like I said, I knew it was too much. I had practiced this weekend and I was like, oh, I got to take some stuff out.
Well, it was perfect. And look at that. Everyone is still here enjoying it. Yeah, for everyone that's still here, thank you so much for joining. We really appreciate it. I hold these events in tandem with Celeritas Digital every month. We're covering different passion topics from some of our favorite people in the veterinary industry. So, Megan, I want to thank you again for joining in on this. I hope we can do something like this again in some shape or form.
Absolutely. I'm honored. Thank you.
But everyone, I hope you can reach out to Megan if you have any questions that come up after this. I know the questions start flooding in my head like right after I get off the discussion. And so definitely make sure to go connect with her on LinkedIn. Check out her podcast, Vet Life Reimagined. We have one of the guests, Dr. Marlene Siegel, in here as well. If you want to check out some of the past events that we've done with Celeritas, you can look at celeritasdigital.com/webinars. I put that link in the chat just now. Yeah, I again, just thank you so much, everyone, for joining on this fine Thursday afternoon.
Hey,
And
Daniel, can I comment for a second?
please.
We just need to get information out to so many more veterinarians and support staff. So I really encourage everybody who's participating to tell 10 people that you know about these webinars. You can always get the replay, but it really is going to take our tribe coming together and reaching out so that we can have these out of the box conversations.
I love it. And that's a very good call to action. Yeah, tell 10 people about it. I mean, it's always nice to see new faces. We have a lot of new faces here. I hope that we'll bring some new listeners to Megan's phenomenal show. I hope we'll bring some new participants to these kinds of conversations that we hold each month. Oh yeah, and feel free, if you don't already have my LinkedIn, let me link mine as well so we can connect there. If you know someone who would make a good guest, or if you would make a good guest, reach out, please. I would love to have you on to talk about your passion topic. And with that, I look forward to following up with all of you soon with the notes from today's conversation. And I hope you have a great rest of your week into weekend. And thank you, Dr. Sprinkle, again.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you. And have a good long weekend.
Okay.